In this video, we'll talk about what to do if your pump system is not using all of the material in your container. We'll be demonstrating with a GSP grease pump and a standard 5-gallon container. So what we're talking about here is when you remove a container after the pump says it's empty, but you still have material left. Maybe it's an inch or two. So how can we adjust your pump so that it's using all of the material? Well, first let's look at the level sensors on the side. This pump is set up with one of our newer style of fixed field sensor. And what the sensor is doing, if we look inside the pump, behind the cover, there's a bar that travels up and down as the ram goes up and down, and the sensors are picking up on that bar. Now it's different with different types of pumps, especially GDPs have a crossbar on the top and the sensors are reading that. The sensor needs to be set so that when the inductor seal reaches the bottom of a pail, it sees that bar at the right position. So let's go ahead, I'm going to lower the pump inductor down to what would be close to an empty position. So it's just slightly above the plate. We don't have these powered up, so there aren't any indicator lights, but if you remove the cover, you can see what the sensor is looking at. You don't have to remove the cover to do the adjustments, however. So first off, let's take another look at what is the empty level. So a pail will have maybe ½ an inch, some metal pails that have a rolled lip on the bottom, maybe a little bit more, like 3/4 of an inch of space before the actual surface inside the pail. One trick that you can do is to find a spacer that is about as thick as the bottom of your pail. I have, for instance, a piece of ½ inch plywood or a 1x2 board, which is approximately 3/4 of an inch. If you have a spacer, it can be plastic or metal, and you feel like it's pretty good representation of the bottom of your pail, you can set that across and then lower the inductor down. So once it's setting on that spacer, that represents an empty position. Now you always want to be careful making sure that your hands are out of the way and you're operating safely and have safety glasses on in the shop. But once we're set at empty, then the key is just to get the sensor into the right position to see that bar. So this just has screws which can be tightened and loosened. If you want, before you start, you can take a marker or some tape and you can indicate where you're at as a starting point for reference. And then as you loosen the sensor, maybe you move it down and you want to see, okay, I've made a 1/4 of an inch of adjustment and the light's on and it's reading empty and it looks right. You don't have to have the reference point, but it may be helpful. So once you've got it adjusted, tighten back up. You'll want to make sure that the cover is installed inside. Then raise the inductor up, remove your spacer, and that's the basics of resetting your empty level sensor. So the empty sensor is designed to stop the pump from running. The low level sensor will give just an indication that it's low, give you time to prepare, get a new pail of grease ready to change in. But the empty is what will actually turn your pump off. So if it's not adjusted properly, you can't get to the bottom of the pail, and hopefully these changes will help that. So we've just looked at the newer style of level sensors, which are called a fixed field sensor. There's other styles of sensors, particularly on older pumps. They're a barrel sensor, and now we'll take a look at a simple adjustment on that style. Let's take a quick look at the other style of sensor, the tubular capacitive sensor. We have a simple demonstration set up using the side panel of a GSP pump here. This style tubular sensor is still used on some of our pumps. It's being phased out, but we'll treat it go through the same process of setting your inductor on a spacer to have the proper empty level. And then to adjust these, on the GSP, you want to loosen the screws that hold the cover on the inside. Remove that cover. Again, I put a piece of tape as a suggestion. You can say this is where I started, and after I made my adjustment, I'm maybe In this case, we're going down because we weren't utilizing enough material, so we're coming down. If your pump doesn't shut off at the bottom when it is actually empty, then you need to adjust your sensors back up so that they do detect an empty level when the container is empty. I'll just remove our reference point, make sure that cables are still tight and everything is back in place. On a GSP, you reinstall the guard and tighten the screws if you remove that. And that is it. That is adjusting the tubular style sensors for pump level. Hopefully that's helped you utilize all the material in your pail or in your drum. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us or look at your operator's manual for the pump.